Good?
Oh, dude, perfect.
Nice.
Dang, so you got a whole setup over there of
I'm at my house right now.
jerseys and stuff.
Oh, I'm at my house.
Let me get a tour real quick.
Oh, it's just my room here with a couple of my old jerseys with the Phillies and Dodgers.
Uh-huh.
Some other stuff
And
over
then you
here.
got that OU one up there. What's that game?
No hitter plaque. They made a play when I was playing in Wichita. They made me a pretty sweet plaque with the lineup card to commemorate it. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah.
Um,
Got my little
it's
room here.
always so they have like the scorecard in there and whatnot.
Yeah, the lineup card here. Let's see. It's like the lineup card that the guy kept, and he kept like all the, what everybody did
Yeah.
at bat, and then it's got the printout of the scorecard.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think it was the first one in history, so
Oh, wow.
I guess it was a big deal to
The
them. So it's
wing
pretty
nuts.
sweet.
What level is
That
that?
was I played independent ball a for a season.
Yeah. Oh, sick.
Yeah.
And that's cool, man. I mean, a no hitter is one hell of a feat. I mean, when I was pitching, I never got a no hitter. The coolest thing I've ever done was I had like 18 Ks in a game.
Dang. See, I never
But
did anything like that. That's impressive.
it was in the state playoffs back in high school. But that's like the coolest thing I've ever done.
You had it going. You had everything going that day, huh?
Yeah, it was kind of funny. There was like a blog online after the game, and the other team's parents were like, "Oh my gosh, the ump was giving him 12 inches on the
Oh gosh.
outside corner." But I mean, even so, if they were, which I don't
You
remember
must,
him giving me that much. But like, get on top of the plate, dude. Make an
yeah,
adjustment,
do
you know?
something, right? You must have been earning that 12 inches off the plate.
Yeah, but yeah, dude, no hitter, that's legit. So, uh, but like, so you went to OU, and then you went and played professionally. So what was that like trip like, or what was
Oh,
the?
it was awesome because I needed some sort of refreshment. I just came. I was at OU my senior year. We lost to Rice in a super regional in pretty devastating fashion. So, I gave up a home run late in the ball game there. That pretty much sealed it. It wasn't a clincher. I think it was seventh inning to put us down by a couple.
Mhm.
But then just having that devastation in my college career and just having a fresh start with pro ball and just guys that didn't know me. Wood bats was a huge deal. I mean, and pitch with some different baseballs too kind of helped my stuff wise. But yeah, I got drafted by the Phillies and went and moved up the ladder there pretty quick. So I know it, you being a mental skills guy, that was in full effect. That's a point in my career where I needed it the most. It was either give up on this thing or go all in and learn from some of this failure you've had just recently. So, yeah, I got up to Double A pretty quick with the Phillies, and then tore my ulnar collateral ligament, and that kind of derailed me for a little bit. And like I said, then I went to Wichita to play independent ball, and then became a starter, and then played 3 more years with the Dodgers once I got healthy. So, I had a pretty good run, and went down to Venezuela for a couple of winters and played down there. So pro ball was fun. I got to hit up just about every part of the country and every different level. Went to big league camp with the Dodgers in 2012. So that was awesome. Being able to have that experience and having a chance to almost make the squad, having a good year in AAA Albuquerque that year. A lot of good experiences, a lot of times where I definitely had to draw on mental toughness and dig deep and have to deal with a lot of the failures because there were a lot of failures during my career. That's what I always tell my young kids that I work with, man, you better find a way to get something from it because or else it's just going to hurt and it's going to suck and it's just going to be that. So,
What's like one thing that you did on the mental skills front that you worked on consistently to help you out?
consistently during my career, it was different times throughout my career. I focused on different things, but one thing that was probably a staple was the visualization. Just like I had a pretty much a routine, definitely before the night before I pitched, for sure. Just trying to put myself in that situation, smell the grass, feel the air, feel the seams of the baseball. Really, just put myself in that situation so I could feel when I got there that I had already been there. That feeling of comfort. I had a
Oh yeah, yeah. And you were telling me about that book you had read or
yeah
the
Jim
audios.
Fan- yeah Baseball in the Zone by Jim Fannin was something I got in high school, and it was something that stuck with me through college and pro ball. But that was one of the big deals, was just really putting yourself in that situation. And one of the forewords I think was by Alex Rodriguez, and he talks about how he during his rookie year he was struggling really bad, but and he had a point where he was hitting 200 or something. He ended up getting American League Rookie of the Year, I believe, or it might have been an MVP later on in his career. But during these times of struggles, every night he'd go to sleep visualizing himself on the Tonight Show, getting, being announced now joining us on the Tonight Show, Alex Rodriguez. And he would just every night. So a couple years later, when he shows up to the Tonight Show, he's sitting there in the green room, and he's like, "I've felt like I've been here 1,000 times already, because I really have in my brain. I'm kind of, and I know we've talked about that fake it till you make it. That's one of the phrases that I like to use the most for my young kids, and they seems to really come. It seems to they get that message. They can fake it. Certain things they don't understand what that means to fake it till you make it. Because if you do trick yourself enough and put yourself in that situation, you're going to have that comfort, and that's really pretty important in this sport of baseball that we've chosen.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually have heard that story about A-Rod, but I forgot it until right now.
Yeah,
You know how like you hear really good stories and then you're like, oh man, that's a good one. I don't know why I haven't told that one in a while.
right. And the details might be a little fuzzy there, but
No, but it's
regardless,
something. I mean, it's something along those lines. Like he definitely
yeah,
imagined himself going on the Tonight Show, and then he was there, and he got there, and he's like, "Man, I feel like I've been here 100,000 times before." Just
right,
like guys, I bet you if you ask Max about last night, Max Scherzer in the
yeah,
World Series, he's probably like, "Man, I feel like I've been here 100,000 times. Now it's just actually like happening in real life."
yeah,
But it's
yeah,
happened inside my brain.
yeah, and there's no shortcuts there. So you're having to put in that work, the visualization, and the main thing I wanted to get across in the visualization is the detailed part of it. It's just like try to smell the grass, feel the seams of the baseball, picture yourself, the sounds of the crowd. Try to really put yourself in that situation. So when you are there, it's just that much more comfort. And I guess
Mhm.
it has something to do with your brain being able to really, trick yourself, basically thinking that it's real enough to where when you get in that situation, there's a comfort level that, you know, it
Yeah,
surely,
when you vividly imagine something, your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imaginary. It's the same reason why, like, when you are having a nightmare, you
right,
wake up and you're sweaty and your heart's racing because
right,
your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's fake when it's vividly imagined.
right.
So,
Well, planes, I can attest to that for sure.
have you always been like, even when you were younger, do you remember yourself being really good at visualization, or is it something you had to work on?
No, it's definitely something I had to work on, and just how to do it. Visually, from my perspective, from my set of eyes, and then a lot of it was seeing myself from a different perspective, like almost having a camera watching yourself. I know that Jim Fannin brings up. I think it's like most people visualize themselves. They're actually looking at themselves from behind and to the right, or behind and to the left. I'm not sure which one it is, but behind and to the right, I believe, is kind of where I always just when I visualize myself and close my eyes and see myself on the mound, that's kind of the what I see is just myself from that perspective. So it's not actually my
Mm.
own eyes. Sometimes, I feel like it would almost be watching, like almost you're watching a video of yourself or a movie of
Hmm.
yourself.
Which one did you find more helpful, from your own eyes or the one from like behind?
That's a good question. I think later in my career, I definitely can remember seeing myself more from behind. And I guess I don't know if that's just maybe from how we're always watching a baseball game, if that has something to do with it.
I
Um,
bet you it does. Because like I was thinking about that too, even in like video games, it's kind of behind the person. You're
right.
always
You
in
get,
that third person view.
yeah, I guess that's a good point.
So like when you're playing video games, if it's like that, it's probably like that as well um, in your head, because that's what you're working on. You're training that view of the plate or whatever it is.
Right.
I'm literally thinking about myself playing Call of Duty right now, or
Oh,
like
what do you look like with
thinking
the head?
about thinking thinking about myself playing like MVP back in
Oh, there you go.
Back in '05, dude, 2005 MVP. That was the baseball game of the century for sure. For
Right.
me
I'm
at
sure a
least.
lot of that training helped us out on the baseball field. I mean, I know just the pitchability type of stuff, like, you just like a video game, but then when you're actually able to that's what's great about when your body and mind gets connected, it almost is like a video game to where
Hmm.
you're able to execute like those guys in the playoffs. There's not too many unexecuted pitches, and the ones that they do throw, obviously can change the World Series, like some of those.
Yeah, if they don't execute one pitch, I mean, that could be the game.
Right. So, along those lines, which, how about that ball game last night? I mean, uh,
That
pretty
was
impressed
crazy.
by the Nationals. I mean, talk about mental toughness. I didn't realize that they started 19-31 to start the season.
Yeah.
Um,
Or what about like how they were a wild card team and
there's
then
so
not
many
only
things.
that, but they won 4 road games to win the World Series.
So many things never been done. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So,
Yeah, that's insane. But I mean, going back to this
right,
visualization thing, like that is definitely a huge skill that a lot of elite athletes talk about. And then they do also talk about how like seeing it from their own eyes and then seeing it as if somebody else is watching them. Like being
okay,
able to do both is huge, but starting out
okay,
with what you're good at, so like
right,
for you, you talk about the third person a lot. So that's the one you were really good at, but like you could do both and you had to
right,
work on doing both in order to like actually get totally immersed inside of it. So when you're training an athlete, some athletes don't even know what they're how to visualize. You have to start out with like pretend you're at home sitting on your chair and you pick up your phone. Like imagine yourself picking up your
wow,
phone, feel the weight of your phone, see the black screen, now turn the screen on. What does your background look like?
okay,
Things
cool,
like that. And now you get them to visualize it. And then you're like, that is visualization. Now, when you're on the mound, then you transfer it into baseball and you put them out there on the mound or, you put them in a past experience. Imagine yourself at a past experience and then put them into the future.
right. Oh,
Um,
it's definitely learned, habit. It's something that it took practice for sure. It was not something I was great at to start. So, and I didn't have any tips like that. I mean, what you said is just imagining doing certain things and feeling the weight. That'd probably be great for me to use with my kids. So,
I don't know if I was ever really. I'm like trying to think. I just feel like I've always been really good at visualization, but I think my dad really helped train it into me when I was a young kid because he was super competitive, like played golf and he was a professional darts player.
come on, wow,
So he would always like tell me like just imagine yourself swinging it before you swing. And then, if I didn't and I'd get super frustrated, he would always tell me like, don't let the game beat you. Don't let the game beat you. Or like after he passed away at his funeral, actually, this guy came up to me and told me this story about him playing darts, how they would go down to Vegas and like win enough money to pay for their rent back in Chicago. Like they did that for a couple of years. And he said that my dad would visualize himself throwing a triple 20 and then throw the real dart right through that imaginary dart that he just threw in his mind. I'm like,
cool,
dang, that's legit. But it's kind
right,
of like a base, like when you're pitching, as soon
absolutely.
as you get, if you've trained visualization, like as soon as you get that pitch and you get that sign, right away, it's like
See
just
it
trained
happen.
to go in your mind and you see yourself throwing that pitch and then you get up there and you throw that exact pitch.
I mean, how much more confidence do you have when you do that, though? When you actually see it happen, it just happened. I mean, it just happened. There's no denying that, and to be able to repeat that is so much easier. And so that's the other thing I wanted to kind of talk to you about is the confidence. The thing that I've kind of been working on in our facility is trust, the trust factor. So everything we do, whether it's drills, every throw, I want there to be some sort of gain towards more trust. That's also something that takes a lot of time. I mean, obviously we can, because I've been thinking you can interchange the word trust and confidence in my mind, the way I look at it. We all understand confidence in the sport is paramount. I mean, it's you go up to the plate without
In
confidence or
anything.
on the mound. Yeah, it's just so big. I guess most sports, but this one seems to be magnified when just because that one-on-one battle and
Yeah.
the ability to have someone win the battle and they be able to the emotions and even in the playoffs, those guys that look like they're not going to crack. I mean, some of those guys. I guess after the moment, there's going to be some sort of emotion at that level. But just intermingling the trust and the confidence and trying to work towards that is kind of what my main goal right now is, just because, like we just talked about, is that feeling of when you're confident and have that trust. And that's what we're all striving for. It's just,
That's what I call the mental game. Like the mental game is all about how to play with confidence, or like you said, I think confidence and trust they definitely do go hand in hand. And so it could be the mental game is all about just like how to build the most trust in yourself
yeah,
and
that's
in
really
your
it.
teammates.
Yeah, that's pretty what it's all about. Yeah, I guess either teammates. Yeah, I guess other
So like
people.
what's one like thing you do to build trust in your guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's really getting them to buy into what that means. First of all, at the level of the kids that I work with, I work with kids anywhere from, I guess I got a couple 7-year-olds now, 7 to college. So it's the whole gamut. But you know, trying to instill the trust is making them understand what that means and how to get more trust. So basically, it's getting comfortable in their own shoes. So a lot of the times, the new drills we do, we definitely expect them to not be much trust, and so it's a progression. So it's everything we do is always going to try to work towards more trust. But I guess now that I'm talking about it more, the main tool we use is some of the technology we have in the house now. So the Rhapsido, the spin rate monitor, and I just got an elbow sensor, the Modus sleeve, which has been
Oh
pretty
yeah, I've heard of that.
awesome. Yeah, I just got it a few days ago. It's been pretty
That can
cool
like
so
track
far.
UCL strain, can't it?
Well, pretty much. What it does is measures the stress levels on your elbow, and
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
sure what algorithm it uses, but the other measurables are arm slot, um, arm speed, which is awesome. Just be able to track, making sure all your pitches are same arm speed is cool. Arm slot, arm speed, shoulder degree, how much layback you get.
yeah.
So it's like up to 180 would be ideal, I guess. Um, there was one other. So then, yeah, so it factors those together. And I know that it has me input the player's height and weight and age. So there's some sort of algorithm there that somehow gives you a number and it tells you what the range is for optimal stress levels of the elbow. I'm
Hmm.
guessing how much torque. It's in Newton meters. There's
Man,
some
that
of it I'm still kind
sounds interesting.
of very interesting.
I know a
So
couple of
using
guys who have played with them, but yeah. So you use those things?
Yeah, so I was just playing golf with a buddy in the OU golf tournament a couple weeks ago with Alec Hansen, who just second round draft pick a couple years ago. He's in the White Sox organization, and he said they're huge. They have him wear it on every throw. They're measuring chronic. What it does is chronic stress levels on your elbow, and then acute. So it measures a 28-day period and then a 7-day window, and it seems it's amazing technology. It can measure some of the stress that's on your elbow to tell you when you can throw more or when it's time to kind of shut it down.
Hmm.
So using some tools like that, I know for a fact have helped my players just have more trust instead of listening to me and just kind of trusting what I say and what I can see with my eyes. There's
Use the
there's
technology.
evidence right there. There's numbers. It's science. Like there's no denying it. And this younger generation um, needs that. I think. I mean, just because that validation, it's there. There's no denying it. It's not like, this guy's full of crap. No, it's there.
Yeah,
So
then it's not like they don't even necessarily have to trust. I mean, they have to trust you, but like at the end of the day, that speeds up your trust curve. Like
exactly.
with the
Validate.
athletes so much when you're like, oh man, that looked really good. Let's check the thing, and that let's check the Modus sleeve, and then you go to the
Right.
Modus sleeve, and it's like, yeah, that was really good, and you're like, oh man, I knew it, and then like, then your eye is linked up with him, so with the sleeve, so it's like, oh man, Will Savage, like he does know what he's talking about, like,
Absolutely. I can see the light go on in their eyes. I'll say like, "Hey, look like you slowed your arm down a little bit there, probably, about 5 miles an hour or so." And then sometimes I'll just guess right, and you just see them like, "How did you?" And so you get
yeah.
that trust right there. So that I guess one of the tools to help developing more trust is some of this technology.
Hmm.
Which at the beginning, I'll be honest with you. I know this kind of technology wave is coming to baseball, and I was a little bit hesitant at first. Just saying, well, I don't need some iPad or something to tell me what I can see with my eye, in a sense. But just diving deep in more into it and realizing what a valuable tool some of these things are. And you have to be able to filter it because an 8-year-old kid looking at all these numbers. I mean, sometimes it's over. A lot of the stuff's over my head at times. It's
Hmm.
how detailed some of this information gets. So being able to be that filter, but definitely think it's helping with the trust level tremendously. Just in the last 6 months since I've got the Rhapsody, and which measures spin rate.
And you're like, here, this is what you need to do to throw this just a little bit harder, and
Right.
then or get your spin rates up, and they do it, and then they see their spin rates go up, and you're like, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Like,
it's a great, I mean, some of the stuff's a great tool to track long-term progress and just the trends of,
mhm,
improvement. So a lot of times, I'm dealing with kids, so their parents are important in the equation as well.
yeah,
Being able
that's
to show them
huge.
the progress instead of saying, "Hey, I think, I definitely think he's getting better." I can see be able to show them numbers and say, "Hey, I definitely think he's getting better, but hey, here's the chart say this, is improving this category spin rate,
Hmm.
get the amount of break." That's what's cool about that Rhapsody too. It shows us instead of just looking at it like, man, that had a lot of late movement. Well, let's look at the screen here and tell us exactly how much. Oh, 12 inches of horizontal. It's so the
Yeah, that's
validation behind
huge.
it is so awesome. So
Yeah. And you guys have like kind of tying in technology and visualization now. You guys have like a virtual reality
right.
helmet that I
Oh, it's
used
so
when I
cool.
was in there. That thing was sick. And like, what's
Oh, it's
funny is that as soon as, so I was just standing there, basically for those listening, like you wear a virtual reality helmet and then you have a clicker in your hand and what you see, you can look around, you move your head, it's like totally immersed. You're immersed in this baseball field basically, and you put a pitcher on the mound and you're in the batter's box and now you can sync up the click with when you should have started your swing. And so when I went there, I tried it out, and at first I was just standing there trying to click right on time, right on time, right on time, and I kept being either late or super early. And then I got into my baseball stance,
yeah.
and I got up there and I like loaded back and then got my foot down and clicked right when I thought I should swing. And as soon as I did that, like right
Oh,
on time,
you're running
it
it
was
by.
awesome.
Oh, there's so many cool features, but yeah, I mean, to be able to, me and my partner Ryan have always said you can't replace live repetitions. We
Yeah.
run a couple camps where we do live simulated BP, where we have our pitchers throwing live to the hitters in a controlled environment. So it's in our cages with Ryan sitting behind the hitters and me right behind the pitcher. So those live reps, they can't be replaced. But now we've got this virtual reality deal where you literally can take hundreds and hundreds of reps sitting there tracking balls. And like you said, you did the one program where you were trying to be on time. There's other programs where you track the ball and then you go and decide what pitch it is. So pitch recognition, and then you can go kind of walk over here and get the little scroll around and place where the baseball, where it was in the strike zone.
Yeah. So like that's a really good point though. Like reps cannot be replaced.
Right.
And
5 reps. I mean, in
like
baseball.
at some point you're not going to be able, you can't hit all day every day, but I mean you can damn sure well try.
Right.
What did
Yeah.
Kobe say? He got like 4 practices in a day.
Yeah.
So like you can definitely do that. But this virtual reality helmet allows you to kind of come at it from a different angle and really immerse yourself in the situation without, like, say you don't have the luxury of having a pitcher throw to you. You can get
Right.
in there,
Oh, yeah.
you can sync yourself up, and you can see different arm angles, and you can put a new pitcher out there if you want all the time and do those things. So, but yeah, live reps matter because you have to create that repeatability in your swing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's so much. I mean, work off a tee and work in the bullpen. There's live repetitions. There's certain factors that just can't be replaced. But they're pretty darn close with this deal. We're pretty excited. That's one of the new technologies we just got in house too. That we are going to start here in the next week or two, getting our athletes. They have to do an assessment. It's a 150 pitch assessment that this deal now creates a program based on how they did on certain areas. There's a lot of science in that too,
Dang,
which
that
is pretty cool.
sounds
Yeah, there's a lot.
amazing.
Like a lot of this stuff's a little bit over my head too, as far as the occlusion. There's words I can't even say, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Yeah,
we're
no,
pretty
that's
excited
cool.
about trying to replace those live reps as best as possible. And this is,
Hmm.
a lot of
So
major league teams have bought in. That's for sure.
So, like outside of sport for you, like what are you working on right now that you kind of like translate over? Like when you talk to your athletes about doing these things, and it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. You're
Right.
telling them to do this or telling them to do that. Like what are you doing right now to like better yourself so that you can help them better themselves, you know?
That's a great question, Tyler. Thank you for asking that. I had to think about it for a little bit. So, I mean, like you said, you got to walk the walk if you're going to talk the talk. So, I think learning from mistakes and not being afraid to fail. Kind of putting yourself out there and being vulnerable a little bit. I guess with my guys, I'm not afraid to tell them, hey, I don't have all the answers. And I hope that they're realizing, because I think with a lot of the guys that I've worked with a while, they respect me. I've been around them a while. I've been pretty consistent with them. So I know that I have their trust, at least a handful of guys that I'm thinking of here. So, just adding that vulnerability to it, I guess, and letting them know that I don't have all the answers, but I'm sure as heck try to get you the answers if I don't have it. And that needs to be your mindset too, as an athlete is, you don't know everything. So try to get as much information as possible. And
And
that's what I'm kind of
fail.
trying to do right now and fail. So those two things, I guess, not being afraid to fail.
You know,
Um,
now that I say that, because you were just telling me about how like you've been like not, I don't want to say you're a failure or
oh,
anything,
okay.
but
Well,
like
thanks for
you
saying that,
guys
Ty.
definitely like in your business and in my business as well, like, it's like failure after failure, but I mean, winners fail more than losers fail. Winners
Yeah,
lose more than losers lose because winning lives in the land of loss. Like, you have to lose in order to find the win, in order to find the strategy that works. Because life isn't a talent game, it's a strategy game, and it's like just trying those strategies over and over and over and over again until uh, you find one that works. And
there you
like,
go. Yeah.
for you right now and for me as well, like in business, like that's where it's at. Like you just need to like keep trying strategies and keep failing at those until you find one that works. So and then when you go into baseball, it's that same mindset. Like that's the mindset that you're trying to build in your kids because when they get older,
Absolutely.
they're going to
Absolutely.
have to fail.
Right, and that's the thing I enjoy about being able to have this platform of teaching kids baseball. But there's so many different life lessons. I mean, I guess that kind of ties to what you just asked me. Is just like my career was filled with a lot of failure. Sorry, I lost you there for a second.
No, it's all
Um,
good.
I can look back and there was a lot of failure. Somehow I was able to keep getting a jersey, but like you said, I failed my way to success, and so I definitely thinking back that question of what am I working on now. That's always kind of been a staple is not being afraid of failure, accept it, and realize that there's going to be a positive that can come out of it if you look at it the right way. And I guess I learned that lesson during baseball. So that's what I enjoy about this platform is being able to maybe teach something to a kid that he might not help him in his high school team here, and then when he's done with his career in 2 or 3 years, but maybe down the road, having those, that's what it's all about. Is having baseball teaches us so much about how to become a man, how to become a family man, how to deal with failure. It's just such a great sport to teach us about life. But so dealing with failure is something, and then um, just keep trying to stay educated. There's so much out there now with, I guess the social media has kind of made everything seem closer,
Man,
but
dude, if like people just latched on to those two mindsets right there, lifelong learning and embracing failure, I mean, we wouldn't have any
pretty
issues in this
powerful
world.
stuff right there. Yeah, it's easy to say too. I'm sitting here saying like, it's a struggle. Obviously, if you're going to deal with that failure, it's not easy. It's easy to maybe talk about and say, well, in hindsight, obviously, but in the moment, can you realize that, hey, I'm going through some failure right now? Am I going to let this get me off course, or am I going to? So that takes time. I mean, I feel like I'm getting better at it though, and it's through experience. Like you said, it's our business struggles a little bit, but it's like I said, it builds character, and as long as you approach it the right way, which we're trying to do with everything, is there could be a lot positive that comes out of it if you have that right mindset. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's, I mean, you're right though. Like baseball does teach that, and baseball does teach to be okay with failure. And then it also
yeah,
teaches that you need to be a lifelong learner because as soon as you stop trying to learn from like the last pitch
yeah.
or stop trying to learn from the last game, like that's when you become stagnant or like
Oh,
when you stop trying new things, you think you know it all. As soon as that happens, you're out of the game before you know it, you
no,
know?
baseball will humble you very quickly. That's the phrase that I like to tell my kids. Baseball, there's two types of baseball players: humble ones and those that are about to be. I don't know if you
You know,
ever.
one thing that I heard, I think it was like John Lester talk about a few years ago. Well, he was having a hot streak, and he's like, "Well, yeah, I'm gonna try to ride this out for as long as I can because it's not gonna be forever." And I understand he's being realistic there, but at the
Right.
same time, like,
That's-
is he already setting himself up for this? Like, is he already doubting his future self? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
Maybe it
Well,
wasn't Lester, but I mean, even if it wasn't Lester, like every athlete has thought that at some
oh,
point.
that's just human nature, right? I mean, this yeah, mind is so powerful and it can get in our way so many times. A lot of times, I mean, that's probably what happened in most of my career is just, that negative thinking creeping in. And whether it's a fear of success or whatever it might be, is every athlete has different issues like that. I know that was something that kind of I've thought about before is just being afraid of that success, wherever that might come from. But yeah, that's definitely going to creep into your mind. Is in baseball, well, as soon as you start feeling too good about yourself, for me at least in my career and everybody I've talked to, the game of baseball will humble you. And at least when you start talking about it, and maybe not when you feel good about yourself because you need to have that confidence. But as soon as you open your mouth and start telling people, you know that what this game will do to you. It'll bring you right back down to earth. So yeah,
Mm.
baseball is so great. It's so life
How
lessons
do,
that
how do you deal with the negative thinking? What's like
try to
one way?
reverse,
What's one way to deal with the negative thinking?
accept it, and realize that that you're thinking that way. I guess that's the first part is, and then just trying to realize, accept it, and realize this is going to get me nowhere. So I guess if you can't accept it, then you're never going to be able to change it. But so yeah, understand that those thoughts are going to creep in, but then be able to replace it with something positive. Um, and that's harder to do at times, certain times than others. But I mean, don't you think? I mean, what would be your suggestion? Because
Literally, that is my suggestion. You got to sit in the negativity. And I was talking to another mental skills guy yesterday, Jake Rockbach. He works with a lot of NBA guys. He's worked overseas in like the Euro League, and
okay,
so he's on the basketball front mainly. But he talks about how like at the elite level, these guys they don't want to take stuff that's gonna, or they don't want to use stuff that's gonna take them forever to finally start working. They're like,
you're
we
right
need stuff that's going to help me produce
now.
tonight, you know,
Well,
especially over in the Euro League where like you have three bad games, you might be get cut. Like they'll find
okay,
another guy if you can't produce.
huh?
So that's one thing he said though. He's like, when you have that negative thought, especially if you have time, like in game, it's a little bit different. But when you have time after the game or when you're at home and you have those negative thoughts, like sitting there and feeling that feeling, because
Intense, right? Like
and
intense feeling that.
yeah, and like just sitting there and being with it, and then kind of like you said, accepting it and being okay with it so that you can move on from it. But if you just try to stack positivity on top of negativity, it's not going to work. Like, and I always come back to this lately. I've been talking about how like it's not necessarily a positive or a negative thought. It's an unproductive or a productive one. Because a negative one can still be productive, but it can also be unproductive. So what are you going to do with that? Kind of like how you were talking about how like it's not the failure, it's how you respond to the
Right.
failure. It's not the negativity, it's how you respond to the negativity.
Yeah.
So like when you have those negative thoughts, like sitting in them and letting that negative just soak there for a minute so that you can come to accept it and can come to be with it, then like that will help you get to a more productive place in your mind. And also what I found out from this guy is that like when we have those negative thoughts and feelings, they're called negatives because our polarity in our bodies literally shifts to a negative polarity. I don't know too much about it, but that's what he told me yesterday on the phone. I'm like, no way. So like a positive thought and a negative thought are actually like two different things. I'm just gonna pause it for a second.
Yeah.
Hold on a sec.
Wow.
Oh, it's all good. There you go. The struggles of living in a studio apartment, you know?
Okay, so you're back home, Chicago. No, you're
Yeah, yeah.
Denver. Where are you at?
I'm in Denver right now, but yeah. So what I was saying is like that. when you have those negative thoughts and feelings, like your body's literally in a negative charge or something like that. So
Gosh, well,
it's pretty crazy, like the research behind it. But
yeah,
yeah, so like negative's not necessarily bad. A lot of people want to associate bad. Oh, it's bad. If you're negative, you're bad, or that's not good. But really, it's like, dude, if that's the case, then human beings are like you're in for a long haul
right,
if that is your mindset, because
right, no
you're
doubt.
going to experience negativity in
50%
life.
of the time, maybe. I don't know. Hopefully, not that much time, but yeah, you're
I
absolutely
mean,
right.
yeah,
So,
most of the time, it's your ability to get out of it, which is important. And yeah, I think what you said right from the beginning, like, first of all, accept it, understand that, like, okay, I'm having this negative thought, being able to catch it and being like,
yes,
oh, that's interesting, and looking at it and being like, hmm, like, where did this thought come from? I wonder why this popped into my head, and then associating it with a positive, or that's why like meditation helps so much, is because it helps you focus your mind and able to actually like catch those thoughts
right. And that's
out
the
of
hard part is in anything really is accepting, understanding, and realizing that that's the problem. Once you realize that's the problem, then you're already on the right track. So,
hmm
to me, at least during my career and even now, just being able to in the moment capture that negative thought instead of having to look at it. Man, if I would have, I think that just maybe maturity as you get older. And some kids are more mature beyond their age, but being able to, yeah, catch it, like you said, is step one for sure. And once you get to step one, it seems like the rest should be downhill from there.
yeah, it's almost like a cataclysmic event from there, like, or a cascade of events from there.
Right.
But
Snowball.
it's that
Good
first
way.
thing, it's the
Yeah.
start that stops most people. But once you get started, it just momentum's on your side
No
with
doubt.
that. And yeah, so catching it in the moment is huge. And like one way to train that in athletes is like a just literally 1 minute of meditation to start. That's every Thursday I do a a optional call with the OU baseball team, and they like to start each meeting we do meditation. And sometimes, depending on what I have to talk about, it's only 15. I only want to like keep them for no more than 15 minutes. So sometimes I'll go, like, if I have a lot to talk about, we'll do a 1 minute meditation. Sometimes we'll do a 3 or a 5 minute meditation, or sometimes we'll just spend the whole time doing, a 15-minute meditation,
Okay.
because I firmly believe that that's how you change. That's how you're able to change in the moment. That's how you're able to catch those thoughts in the moment and get out of that spot quicker, so that you can get to the next pitch, or you can
Right.
get to the next player, you can get to the next moment with your, outside of sport too, like with your family or with your um, your friends.
No doubt. Yeah. The meditation's huge. And it's something that there are certain times in my career that I was into it, and it's something that's kind of come in and out of my life. But it's something that if that's a staple, I need to get that back going. That's for sure. So if there's one takeaway, I'm glad that you brought that up, because at times I've realized how important it is, and it's kind of
There's
leaks the
this
back.
awesome there's this awesome app called Headspace, which,
It's
yeah, you can use
check
it
it
with your
out.
athletes too. Just like, hey, okay, like as part of your warm up,
Check that down.
here's the 1 minute meditation for the day or something like that.
Cool. Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, man, like what else is like what's another kind of skill that you used in your like pro career? You talked about visualization. What's another one
Yeah,
that you
visualization
did?
probably the number one thing is
What happened when like things were going bad? What like looking back on it, what's like something you did to get out
when
of it, or when you were in it, maybe like you don't even know how you got out of it, and now looking
right.
back, you're like, oh, okay, that's what I did.
Yeah, and it's fake it really. Like I mentioned earlier, that fake it till you make it. And when you're sitting there feeling sorry for yourself after giving up a home run, there's like it's really tough in that moment to be confident. I mean, let's just be honest. You just gave up a bomb, guys over there pimping, bat flipping on you, and you somehow have to come and make a confident pitch. This, coming up here in about 30 seconds. So being able to when I needed to fake it, it was just draw back on all my experiences that were good. in the moment when I felt myself with no confidence is being able to think back, okay, when was the time when I punched somebody out? And so that's where I guess visualization kind of came in too. Kind of everything ties into that to me. Just being able to see it in your own head, punching somebody out, punching Manny Ramirez out, or punching somebody out that's a big name. Right there, I could just me saying that when I punched out Manny Ramirez. I know it's one of your guys. That's why I like to keep bringing that up. I like telling that story anyway.
Yeah, I like Manny.
Got him twice.
He's
Okay.
one of my favorites.
Oh, the best right-handed hitter in my generation. So to be able to draw back on an experience when you had success would instantly get me out of that funk.
Yeah, man, I'm so glad you brought that up because that's literally one thing that I use for myself as well, like in business, like, or just in my own life. Oh man, like at the end of the day, what are some wins I had?
Yeah,
You know,
think
so you
back.
go to bed with that good feeling. Or even he's a junior in high school. Now he's going to be a senior this year, and good ball player. He but he was having a tough time. He's like, dude, I don't know what happened. I just lost it. And I'm like, okay, you couldn't have lost all of it. I'm like, what's
Right.
one moment in the past few games that you did something good? And he's like, oh, well, I did this really well there. And I'm like, okay, so obviously you didn't lose it. You still got it. You're just more focused on one thing than the other. So he started writing down all of his wins from the from the games that he had. So like I had him keep a list of wins. He would write down 3 wins after every game, after every practice for 2 weeks, and then at the end of the 2 weeks, I asked him. I said, "Hey, did you ever go back and have you read those yet before a game or anything like that?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Do you have them with you right now?" And he goes, "Yeah, I do." So he pulls out his sheet and he reads off these list of wins, and kind of like you just did, he starts reading them, and he goes from like this to like by the
Yeah.
time he was done, he was like standing up, like holding them like this. He's like, yeah. And then I hit a line drive to the opposite field for a single, and it was
Yeah.
awesome.
He
And like
grew on.
the rest of the season, he was in a good spot mentally, and he finished off the season really hot. But that's because all he was doing is like going back to visualization. When you read those things, it takes you back to the moment, and you're like, oh man, yeah, that was awesome in that moment. You feel yourself be there again.
Yeah, cool.
So a
That's
list of wins is huge. So and
yeah.
for you to pull that up in game like that, that's impressive. I don't know. I've never really heard a guy talk about that.
Well, I wouldn't. I wish it happened more often. Towards the like one of those crossroads where later in your career, you start to. You just wish your mind and body could peak at the same time. And it was almost one of those deals where I started to feel like mentally and had the game plan and the stuff, but then, some injuries, happen. So that's probably everyone that
Yeah.
cross being able to get there mentally when you still have the physical peak is so
Mm,
that's what's so cool. I mean, most of the kids I work with seem so advanced. The kids these days now, just emotionally, mentally, it just seem more mature, which is cool. And not every case, but what kids are able to grasp, you don't give them enough credit sometimes. So that's what's exciting
true.
about
Yeah,
diving
and
in.
I was talking to Ryan, your business partner, about it, and like, because he's on the hitting side, you're on the pitching side, and we talked about how like kids are smarter than like most people think they are. If you ask them a good question, they're gonna think, and if you give them the time to think, and you expect an answer, and you're okay with silence, and
Right.
you don't answer it for them, like they will give you a good answer. They know inherently, and also they've been taught. If you're a decent teacher at all, you tell them, hey, this is what you do. And then when they don't do it and you ask them a good question, or when they do it right and you ask them a good question, then it just speeds up their learning curve even more. And but I just wanted to go back real quick. One question
Yeah.
I thought about when you were talking about like you want to practice this so that like you're mentally and physically peaking at the same time. Like what is so like say we have a 27-year-old professional player who's
Okay.
been playing for 5 to 8 years, and he's finally starting to like physically like talented as hell, but he's up and down. He's riding the roller coaster, emotional roller coaster out there, either hitting or pitching. Like, what's the first thing you would do with him from a mental skill standpoint? If he was like, all right, I need something, and he goes to Will Savage, and you're like, basically, do this.
Right. Well, the first word would be routine. Just checking his routine and making sure. I mean, to me, if he's going up and down, there might not be that steady routine that a baseball player needs, whether it's preparation, as a pitcher, whether it's, as a relief pitcher, it's harder to have a daily routine, but in your warm up in your program, you can still, there's so many opportunities for routine in baseball, whether it's your daily routine to your workout, conditioning, even your mental, like we talked about, meditation and visualization, that needs to be part of your routine. So that would probably be the first thing that I would check off to make sure that he has a routine in place. Is he comfortable with his routine? Because in baseball, we all know, especially being a long season and just the way the game's set up, being able to have to repeat the same pitch over and over and over, man, routine is such a big part of it. So, that's the first
Yeah,
thing that jumped out
that's
to asking that
man,
question
that's
is,
a good answer because routines are so important, so important. I was just listening to, did you see Roger Clemens and like before Game 6, him talking
no,
about his routine?
uh-uh.
So they had the Rocket on there, and he was talking about his pregame routine because Frank Thomas asked him, all right, he's like, you got to tell me because it seemed like you were always ready to go from the first pitch of the game. Like you were just you were
Yeah,
ramped up, you were in the
locked in.
zone, locked in. He's like, but some guys go out there and they look like they don't get warm until like the third or the fourth inning. What do you say to those guys? And Clemens talked about routine, and he's like, if you're struggling in the first inning, you got to get that first inning out of the way in the
In the
bullpen.
bullpen, yeah,
So
kind
like
of,
you got to throw like 20 extra pitches there so that when you get out onto the game mound, you're already past that point and you're ready to go and you're locked in. And I was like, dang, dude, that's so
yeah,
good. And he also
that's all.
talked about, owning both sides of the plate and how you could do that. But I mean, it was a really good interview. I'll have to send it to you after this.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I
I
know
think I
that. I've
saw
had,
it on I think I saw it on the MLB Instagram.
yeah, send that over. I remember I pitching coach in AAA would have me first, the guys that would struggle in the first inning. There were several of them on our staff. Like the first inning would just not be locked in, but we started facing the first three or four hitters in the bullpen, just scripted. Like, you'll throw an extra, like you said, 20 pitches, but you're getting that out of your way and you're having an intense ball, calling balls and strikes and simulating it down there. That definitely is something that could help. So that's cool. That's cool to hear the Rocket say that that was part of his routine. One of the
Yeah.
best, I guess.
Or I don't know if it was part of his routine, but it was part of he was telling like that's one of the
Okay,
things
that's
he
what he
would
probably
do.
needed. Okay,
He's like, dang, yeah, you need to get that out of the way beforehand. I mean,
no doubt.
or like you Darvish this last year when he went on that tear with the
Yeah,
Cubs. I think it was like 7 games in a row where he did unbelievable.
right.
And the guys that were around him said that he just really took his level of detail in his routine to a whole nother level. And to hear a Japanese guy say that, because the Japanese are known for their
Detail
like
oriented and
yeah, exactly, their detail in their routines and all of that stuff. So for him to talk about how he took his routine to a whole nother level, I'm like, he must have been down to the second, like
yeah, right.
at this exact time I'm doing this.
And
But
that's tough to repeat. When you get so detailed in a routine. So there's certain things that there's borderline. Some guys are obsessive compulsive. Where I've played with a couple guys that had OCD, and it's like, it was draining to watch them because, there's certain things that they had to do before. So in a sense, baseball kind of breeds a lot of that superstition.
mm,
So that's
see,
one part of
see,
it.
I what's your take on superstitions?
I mean, I was a big, I had some superstitions, and it was just anything to grasp on to help me feel confident. But the problem is with certain superstitions, it takes you the other way too. If you're not able to if you forget to put your socks on right, or if you're not able to, there's not enough ammonia whippers for you. That's one thing I would make sure I sniff an ammonia before I went out there every inning. But there's certain things if you're not allowed to get your routine and don't happen, then all of a sudden you panic and don't feel as comfortable. So it's slippery slope there. But baseball breeds it, man. It's just part of it. You're doing the same thing over and over for 160 something games, minor leagues 140. It's just, you're trying to get that comfort. So,
Hmm.
people feel more comfortable when they're able to do a certain routine, at least most
Yeah.
of the guys I played with.
I like what you said there though about how it sometimes takes you the other way because I mean that's so true. And but it's also being able to notice like, hey, I don't need that to pitch well.
Right, right.
Like I've put in the work. I
Well, yeah, you
understand.
start leaning on something that's an inanimate object or something when you're yeah, you kind of give yourself less credit than you deserve. So yeah, it's a slippery slope, I guess.
Yeah, or like how many times it's like Ken Reviso used to say, like have a good shitty day. You don't have to. Not everything has to go perfect for you to pitch well. Or
Right.
like how bad are you that you need everything to go perfect for you
Yeah,
to
that's
pitch
the other
well?
thing. Right, exactly.
Like if you're really that bad, well, you're not going to last anyways. So like if you're
Yeah, good
leaning on
point.
superstitions all the time, then like you're probably not going to last very long.
Yeah, great
But
point.
then again, there are guys that have those incredible superstitions that, I mean, they claim help them, and then but nobody really talks about how, like, what happens when it doesn't happen. What happens when your superstition doesn't go on?
Right.
That
Yeah.
question rarely gets asked.
No, it needs to be addressed because yeah, that happens a lot. So what
Yeah.
happens when you have this whole yeah routine or something? Then your buddy that you've got a certain high five with, he's in the bathroom before you go out to pitch. Are you just gonna abandon? Yeah. So then what happens? So
Yeah.
it definitely needs to be
Uh,
addressed.
hmm And I think it comes back to just mindset. Like, are you are you mentally that unstable where you need that? Because a superstition is at the end of the day like something. It's an uncontrollable part. But I also like what you said where like superstitions can help. Like they can build confidence in
Oh
yourself.
yeah, make you feel more comfortable, right? And that's what
Yeah,
we're is
and
that comfort.
comfort builds confidence.
Okay. Yeah.
Like it's kind of like when you go out there and you feel, that's why people always say like get comfortable being uncomfortable, because if you get comfortable being uncomfortable, then you'll
Yeah.
be confident in uncomfortable situations.
Right. Yeah, I like
Because,
that.
so it's like when you go out there though, say the first time you pitch in front of like 5,000 people, you know, and it's super uncomfortable and you might have a lack of confidence in your stuff because of the situation that you're in. You're letting the environment affect you. But then, like, you go out there again, you pitch in 5,000 front of 5,000 people. You do it again. You do it again. Next thing you know, you're going out there and you're pitching because you're used to 5,000 people. You're
Right.
comfortable in that uncomfortable or what used to be uncomfortable environment. So it's like putting yourself out there and then going back to visualization, being able to see yourself in front of. I mean, I can't imagine like the World Series playing in front of 50,000 people or whatever it was.
Ah, that's wild, right? I mean, and millions are watching at home, but every little detail is being analyzed.
Scrutinized.
How many
Yeah.
cameras are on your face? So yeah, you better be mentally tough, man, or you're gonna get exposed, right? And you gotta hand it to some of those guys.
Yeah, or I mean, even to just like produce in that situation and then go out
Ugh,
there and I mean, I watched the video of Alex Bregman running out to start the game yesterday, and there's just all those people going absolutely nuts, and I'm like, what is that like? I I don't know. I mean, I remember one time I was on the court at Indiana State. We had a packed house playing Wichita at in basketball, and the baseball team got announced onto the basketball court, and I'm standing in front of like I think the Holman Center at Indiana State holds like the most people out of any other
oh wow,
basketball arena or something. It's huge, or it's one of the biggest. And I just remember looking around, being like, "This is a lot of people,
a lot of eyeballs.
a lot of eyeballs." So I mean, for those guys to go out and do that
Well,
is,
you look at a guy like Soto. I mean, how comfortable is he? He's sitting there, joking with the catcher. He's, it, the comfort level for him to be that comfortable in that situation is rare, and for him to be able to, that's a skill right there. To be able to be that comfortable in his own skin and in his abilities to be that relaxed. At 20 years
yeah,
old, 2021, I think he just turned 21. So
21. And I think what you're saying there is really interesting to kind of dive into, because he is a guy that I think has seen himself there over and over again as well. Like he's like, I know I can be at this level because I've imagined this my entire life, like since he was a young kid. He was like,
yeah, so he was meant.
I'm gonna play at the MLB level and I'm gonna play in the World Series.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that point because that's something, talk about my career a little bit more is I lacked that. I didn't feel like when I got to the big league clubhouse in 2012 with the Dodgers, I deserved to be there. I knew that. My pitching my ability gave me the right to be there. But deep down inside, I don't think I had the feeling that I belonged. Sitting there as Kershaw, Kenley Jansen, Matt Kemp right next to me. So what did I need to do better to have that confidence in myself? I can think of a lot of things, obviously in hindsight, but
What's one thing?
just believe in my abilities more and just, believe in myself more. And
Did you ever write down your goals?
yeah,
Like be a World Series champion? Did that ever come up or anything like
not
that?
a World Series champion, but just to pitch in Dodger Stadium. And
So like
there
maybe
was,
maybe
oh,
that was it because I was reading a book about a NBA guy. This guy Brett Ledbetter works with a lot of NBA players, and in his book he talks about this NBA player who like his dream was to play in the NBA, and then he got to the NBA and he started doing terrible because like
just to get
he
there, huh?
he'd met his goal, you know.
Right.
So then from there he's like, uh, what do I do?
Where do I go now?
But like
Yeah.
that's the thing is like as soon as you reach a goal, you have to create another one. Like you have to. It's human nature to get to one peak and then look and go to the next peak and then get there and go up to the next mountain peak. Like it's a never-ending process either. As soon as you get up to one place, I mean, it goes back to Sisyphus and pushing the rock, the Greek myth.
Right.
Like,
Oh, that's
as
great,
soon
man.
as you get to the top, the rock rolls back down, and you do it again, over and over and over again, your whole freaking life. And so, like, when you get to so I'm wondering if, like, when you got to the bigs, if like creating another goal would have
Yeah,
helped
that's
you be like, all right, let's do this now, you know?
right.
But and that goes back to kind of like Tom Brady too, though. Like Tom Brady, in that after he won his second Super Bowl in a row, he was like, "Is this it? Is this what it is?" Because he was even like, "I've reached the top twice, back-to-back years." He's like, "I don't feel any different." So now what is it about?
Yeah.
So it's like then he had to reassess what like his goals were. His goal was to get a Super Bowl and he reached that. Now it's like, okay, now it's
Yeah.
reassessing. Okay, back to back. Did that too. Oh, shit, now what? You know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so,
Definitely. Just almost happy to be there type of effect. Yeah, there's definitely, I can see that it was a factor. Being able to reset goals is some great
mhm.
advice. That's something I need to talk to my kids more about.
um, well, hours up,
Oh,
so I don't want to
cool. Well, that's good
keep the
stuff, man. That's a
people.
lot of,
But yeah, for sure, that was a lot of information. What's your like number one takeaway from our
yeah, I
little
was
chat?
ready. Um, so much good stuff there. Um, yeah, just not being afraid of those negative emotions. I think when we were talking about that, like kind of just sitting in it, and after let's say you gave up a bomb to blow the game, you're gonna feel that. You can't mask it. Like what I was gonna say earlier is, like you said, if you just try to stack positive emotion on top of that, it's like a cortisone shot. You'll feel good for a week, but then you're not the root of the pain is still gonna be there. I guess so that's what I was thinking about when you said that. So
Dang, I like
being
that
able to
analogy.
yeah, I don't know if that's medically true or not, but to me, a cortisone shot just masks the pain for a while, and your injury's still there. I've had a couple of them, and it feels good, man, to
Hmm.
go out there and air it out. But
Yeah,
just not mask. So being able to sit there and soak in it and feel that intensely, I think, and then be able to replace that. All right, so that's a big takeaway for me because there's no replace. You're going to go through a bunch of crap, especially in this game. You're going to go through a lot of failure. So you can't just mask it and be like, "Oh, it's okay, it's all right. I'm gonna be positive." That's just it's
for
not
sure.
realistic. So just being a realist is you're gonna have to feel that pain. It's gonna suck. It's
Yeah,
gonna be crappy. But to me, if you are able to kind of sit there and soak in it, it'd be easier to replace with the positive stuff because all right, getting rid of it, get it out of your system.
hmm.
That's kind of my main takeaway. That's one thing I
Cool.
liked hearing from you. So
Sounds good, man. Well, thanks for
cool.
getting on. I appreciate it. Where
Yeah.
can people reach you at?
Yeah. Will Savage. Let's see. What's our handle here? Yeah. OKC Cages on Instagram, but I don't have many social media handles. But yeah, Will Savage 37 at Gmail if you want to shoot me an email.
Sounds
Um,
good.
that'll probably be the best way to get a hold of me.
Well,
So Tyler,
Savage37 at Gmail. Got it.
yeah, thank you so much for having me, Tyler. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Keep
I'll
doing
talk
your
to
thing,
you
man.
soon.
Okay, take care.
All right, see ya.
All right, bye.